It was recess, 3rd grade. I saw a girl sitting against the fence, and I thought I had gone to school with her in a different elementary school, and I wanted to find out. So I walked up to her and I said, "Is your name Alexandria?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Oh, it's always embarrassing when you make a mistake." Anyway, her name is Hannah. And I told her my name is Grace. And then, "Why are you sitting down at recess?" of course, is the natural next question. And then I found out that she couldn't play. She had kidney infections. Well, that stuck me because I have had kidney infections at this point in my life frequently. I said, "Oh my goodness, me too. They're horrible." So we sat down and talked about that and then became best friends. Over 20 years later, we're still best friends. But what's interesting about us is that between the two of us, we have 9 to 10 different autoimmune diseases, which makes for a very interesting life. Thank you for joining me today. We're in the spoon drawer. My name is Grace McWilliams. I have a company in Savannah, Georgia called Coastal Empire Wellness. I have taught Tai Chi in Savannah, Georgia for about 7 to 8 years now, and I'm expanding my company to a more broad wellness company. This podcast is specifically dedicated to autoimmune disease awareness. 1 in 5 Americans is dealing with chronic illness. That is an astounding number, 20% of the population. And that is just the people who have the chronic illness, the autoimmune disease. That does not include the people who are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, partners, wives, husbands, mothers. Again, 70% of that 20% is women. So this is a very big issue that we're not talking enough about. It is literally plaguing the human condition in America, and there's just not enough being said about it. So here we have the spoon drawer. I want to start by just doing a very simple, easy to understand definition. An autoimmune disease is an illness that causes the immune system to produce antibodies that attack normal body tissues. Autoimmune is when your body attacks itself. It sees a part of your body or a process as a disease and tries to combat it. Now, that sounds miserable if you ask me. Your body is pretty much attacking itself. No good, no good. And it feels like that. So, let's just talk a bit about what's coming up next. Today, I'm just going to give you a brief overview so that you can better understand some of the underlying issues of autoimmune diseases. But we have funky fungus to talk about. We have botched medical treatments to talk about. Oh, a plethora of symptoms and lists of diseases. It's going to be great. But I do have to say, this is not happy, fun material to cover. But that does not deter me from exposing so much that people don't understand about autoimmune diseases. Let's start with a list of diseases that are supposedly commonly known. So you might have heard of some of these. We have rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, fibromyalgia, psoriasis, type 1 diabetes, Graves' disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and these are just some of the basic ones. So I'm going to mention that on this list, pernicious anemia is present. We're going to come back to that because that's actually kind of important. But for now, we're going to move right on along. Some basic symptoms are fatigue, achy muscles, swelling and fever, trouble concentrating, redness, numbness and tingling in the hands and feet, unstable blood sugar, hair loss, and skin rashes. This is a very short list, by the way. There are over 100 autoimmune diseases, and there are just as many symptoms. And the symptoms trade back and forth and switch around. So it makes diagnosing an autoimmune disease very difficult because they share so many of the same symptoms. One of the most basic complaints when it comes to diagnosing autoimmune diseases, the biggest symptom is like exhaustion. Fatigue is how the list described it, but it's exhaustion. You're tired. And you say this out loud, but people cannot grasp the level of tired that you're talking about. A woman named Christine Miserando created the spoon theory, which is used to depict limited energy in units as spoons. So a normal, healthy individual may have about 10, 15 spoons for the day, and that's all their energy for the day. But somebody with an autoimmune disease or a chronic illness may only have 5 spoons, 7 spoons for the day. So there you can kind of see the degree of tired. You literally don't have enough energy to complete all the daily tasks. Another aspect of the spoon theory is how much energy it would take to execute a task. So let's say washing dishes might take a normal individual who's healthy a quarter of a teaspoon or a quarter of a spoon. But you have somebody who is ill and sick, and it might take them 4 spoons of energy to do the dishes, which is funny because I like the spoon reference with the dishes. Did you see what I did there? Anyway, so you kind of can guess now how it feels for somebody to do the dishes. Obviously, standing takes much more energy than the normal healthy individual. Moving your arms can make you more tired. These are just examples of the spoon theory. And I bring that up because it helped revolutionize the way I not just understood my limitations with energy, but also was able to communicate them and verbalize it much easier to other people around me who might not understand what I'm talking about, or that tired means this, actually. So you have to bring up the spoon theory when you're talking about autoimmune disease and how to make it relatable. We're going to keep going now. We've covered that, which I think is, once again, I'm going to say it, so important. And thank you, Christine, for doing this for us. All right, so I mentioned pernicious anemia on the list of quote-unquote commonly known autoimmune diseases. Now, I have a bone to pick about that being on the list. So I went 26 years of my life before I got diagnosed with pernicious anemia. I was not told at the time that it was an autoimmune disease. So it's been years, lots of years. And I'm just now finding out as I was doing, some refreshing research for this podcast. And I saw that on the list. I said, really? I didn't even know that was an autoimmune disease. No one has ever told me that in all of these years of seeing all of these different doctors. And I just thought, what in the world? If I don't know this, well, then nobody, not that nobody can know it, but it's not commonly known. Not only did I not know it was an autoimmune disease, but it wasn't even diagnosed for over 20 years. So I just don't know if that deserves to be on the commonly known list, is all I'm saying about that. And just so you know what pernicious anemia is, your blood cells, the volume is high. So the blood cell is large. Your red blood cells are too large to go through your blood vessels comfortably, right? So it causes much pain and inflammation because your blood cells are literally too big for your body. So that's not fun. That doesn't even sound fun. And the reason that I got so upset and flustered when I saw it on the list is because that means I have 6 autoimmune diseases now, and I didn't know I had 6. I thought I had 5. So my number is slowly getting higher, and I don't really like it. Just saying. As we continue with our overview, let's just talk for a moment about the repercussions that are not always considered when we think of autoimmune diseases. Like, of course, you have emotional, physical, and mental. But okay, we know that. So do we think about the financial repercussions, the social, the professional, the intellectual? And when we do think about the emotional aspects, that come from your life with your diseases, or even just the experience of a lack of diagnosis or a diagnosis. Either way, emotions can run high and you feel so detached and strange. When dealing with these issues, you feel isolated a lot of the time. So some of the emotions that we'll see and talk about very in depth in the future are guilt, our relationship that our disease has with the ego, the aspects of being embarrassed and lonely. And it just is so far reaching into one's existence that unless we really go deep and dive in and shed light, people can't really understand why this is very important for us to be talking about and learning more about and finding more readily available solutions. Anyway, I just would like to mention that in 2013, which was 6 years ago, right, 70% of the deaths that year were chronic illness related. 70% of deaths in 2013. That is such a high number. So I feel like, who knows what it is now? I would love to look up and find a newer fact. Unfortunately, I couldn't find an updated statistic on that. So that is from the Center for Disease Control, so you know it is legitimate information. I also use information in this episode from the American Autoimmune Related Diseases Association, Incorporated, AARDA.org. I also feature information from the American Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology. You can find more at AAAI.org. Moving on. Okay, so we're wrapping up now. I just kind of don't want to overwhelm you with information. So in upcoming episodes, we're going to also talk about brain fog, because that is a really overwhelming aspect to this series of diseases. And we're going to have various healing modalities explained, interviews with professionals across many industries, as well as Spoonies of many different backgrounds. And a Spoonie is somebody who uses the spoon theory, so somebody who has autoimmune diseases. And in the next 2 to 3 episodes, we're going to be diving into my personal story with autoimmune diseases. It's a saga, it's gritty, but it's worth listening to. If you would like to continue listening to the Spoon Drawer, it's good to know a little bit about the host and her personal experiences so that you can trust where I'm coming from. With that being said, I look forward to having many more episodes with you, and I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time in The Spoon Drawer.